She ran into his arms. Big mistake. Because the man she hugged wasn't her brother. He was a billionaire. The airport was packed. People everywhere. Rushing, hugging, shouting. Emily stood on her toes, scanning the crowd. Her brother was finally coming home after months away, and her heart was racing. Then she saw him. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair. That was him. Without thinking, she pushed through the crowd and threw herself into his arms. "Oh my God, I missed you so much," she whispered into his chest. But something felt off. His chest was too firm. And his cologne, nothing like her brother's. It was rich, woody, expensive, too expensive. A cold wave ran through her. Slowly, she looked up. That wasn't her brother. It was a complete stranger. Not just any stranger. This man looked like he'd just stepped out of a luxury magazine. Perfect suit, sculpted features, stormy grey eyes, locked right on her, and he was clearly amused. Emily gasped and jumped back so fast she nearly tripped. I hugged the wrong guy. Oh my God, I'm so sorry." He raised one eyebrow. Well, that was unexpected. "I thought you were my brother," she blurted. "Same height, dark hair. I didn't look properly. It was the reflection, the angle. I have emotional nearsightedness." That made him laugh. Emotional nearsightedness? Yeah, it's when emotions block your brain from functioning normally, she muttered. Just then, a massive bodyguard appeared beside him. "Mr. Carter, is everything all right?" Emily froze. Carter. As in Brian Carter, the elusive billionaire, the man behind half the city's skyline? No way. Her face turned red hot. She'd just thrown herself at a billionaire in front of security cameras and 100 strangers. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, stepping back. He studied her with a lazy smile. "You look nervous." "I'm afraid of security cameras, and going viral, and Alaska. I might move to Alaska now." Brian chuckled, arms crossed, clearly entertained. But Emily couldn't take it anymore. She turned and escaped into the crowd. Still, she felt his eyes follow her. And the worst part? She had a feeling that this, whatever this was, wasn't over yet. Emily tried to forget the airport disaster. She failed. The memory haunted her all shift long at the tiny cafe where she worked. The same airport cafe where tired travelers came for caffeine and zero manners. "Excuse me," a man snapped. "I said no foam in my cappuccino." Emily forced a smile, remade the drink, and handed it back. No thanks, no eye contact, just another day. She needed this job. The pay wasn't great, but it kept the lights on and helped her care for her little brother Oliver. Just a few more hours, she thought. Then her manager called out, "Emily, take the order to table 12. She grabbed the tray and weaved through the crowd, but when she reached the table and saw who was sitting there, her heart dropped. Brian Carter, the same man she'd mistakenly hugged. Same storm grey eyes, same perfect suit, same unreadable smirk. "Well, look who it is," he said, leaning back. "We meet again." Emily blinked. "You?" "Me." He nodded, clearly enjoying himself. "And now you're serving me coffee. Isn't life funny?" Her face burned. "I swear this isn't stalking." He laughed. She set the coffee in front of him, trying to pretend she was calm. "Here's your order. Have a nice day." She turned to walk away, but his voice stopped her. "Wait." Emily froze. "Do you always run away this fast?" She turned slowly. "Do you always sit in cafes waiting for women who've awkwardly hugged you in public?" "Maybe it's fate," he said. "Or maybe this airport has limited coffee options." Brian picked up his cup and took a sip, eyes still locked on her. "Tell me something," he said. "Did you really think I was your brother? Or were you just in the mood to hug a stranger?" Emily's jaw dropped. "Excuse me?" "You were very comfortable. I'm just saying." "Oh, for heaven's sake," she rolled her eyes. "It was a mistake. I didn't even know who you were." "That's rare," he said. His voice was quieter now, almost thoughtful. "Most people know me, or pretend they do." She studied his face. There was something tired in his tone, something that didn't match the perfect suit and billionaire name. "Well, she said finally. I'm not most people. He smiled. I noticed. And for a moment, they just stood there, staring at each other, not as a waitress and a billionaire, but as two people who weren't quite sure what just started between them. The next day, Emily told herself it was over. It was a weird accident, a few words, nothing more. But the universe disagreed. Because when she stepped behind the counter the following morning, Brian Carter was already there, sitting at the same table, staring right at her. She froze. Nope, she muttered to herself. Not today. But Brian raised his hand with a small wave. Waitress, he called out. She narrowed her eyes. He did not just do that. Still, professionalism kicked in. She grabbed her notepad and walked over. Mr. Carter, she said with a smile that was only polite on the surface. What can I get you today? A coffee, he said, but only if you make it yourself. Emily blinked. Are you saying the coffee here isn't good enough? Not at all, he replied smoothly. I just want to see if the woman who hugs strangers also knows how to make a decent espresso. Her face flushed. You're never letting that go, are you? Definitely not. She huffed and walked off, but she couldn't help the tiny smile tugging at her lips. A few minutes later, she set the cup in front of him. Here it is, the finest awkward hug-inspired coffee on the menu. Brian took a sip. Wow. Emily tilted her head. Wow, good or wow bad? Wow, good. You're actually talented. She smiled. Thanks. I work here, you know. Yeah, but you don't seem like someone who belongs in a place like this. That caught her off guard. And what exactly does that mean? He leaned forward slightly. You've got something in your eyes. Determination. Fire. Like you're meant for something more. She paused, surprised by his words. Well, she said slowly, paying rent requires a lot of fire too. Brian chuckled, but before she could respond, her manager appeared, Mr. Phillips, the grumpy boss with the permanent scowl. Mr. Carter, he said, suddenly all smiles. An honor. I hope our staff is taking care of you. Brian glanced at Emily. Actually, she's doing an excellent job. Phillips's smile twitched. That's good. Emily, stop standing around. Get back to work. Emily clenched her jaw but turned to leave. Wait, Brian said again. She stopped mid-step. I'd like her to continue serving me, he said to the manager. Phillips hesitated. Well, that might delay other customers. Then assign someone else. I'd like to speak with her. Emily jumped in. It's fine, Mr. Phillips. I can serve other tables too. But Brian shook his head, smiling. Relax. I just enjoy good company with my coffee. Emily sighed. This man, he was trouble. The charming, grey-eyed kind. And somehow she knew. This was only the beginning. Ever since Brian Carter started showing up at the cafe daily, things got complicated. It wasn't just her boss anymore. Now her co-workers whispered. Some looked curious, others jealous. And Emily? She just wanted it to stop. Because why would a billionaire keep coming to the same airport cafe? Asking for her. It didn't make sense. By the end of her shift, she was exhausted. She wiped the counter, ready to go home, when she felt it again, that shiver down her spine. She turned. He was there, again, walking straight up to the counter this time. I need a favor, he said. Emily frowned. A favor? From me? Brian smiled. Have dinner with me tonight. She nearly dropped the rag in her hand. What? Dinner, he repeated calmly. Food. Conversation. You know, normal stuff. Why would I have dinner with you? Because I want to know you better, he said, stepping a little closer. And because you want to say yes, but you're scared to. Emily stared at him, speechless. You are so full of yourself. I've heard that before. You really think I'm going to agree just like that? He didn't blink. Yes, because I don't take no for an answer. She crossed her arms. Well, bad luck. I do. Brian chuckled, then calmly grabbed a napkin and scribbled something down. Here, this is the place. I'll be there at 8 p.m. If you don't show up, I'll assume you're terrified of me. Emily took the napkin with a dramatic eye roll. Afraid of you? He tilted his head. You don't seem like the type to back down from a challenge. And with that, he walked out, leaving her standing behind the counter, napkin in hand and heart pounding. At 7:59 p.m., she stood in front of the restaurant he'd written down. She had no idea why she was there. It was stupid, dangerous, insane, and yet, she walked in. The place wasn't flashy. It was elegant, quiet, almost like he wanted her to feel comfortable. She looked around, and there he was, Brian Carter, impeccably dressed, calm, confident. When he saw her, his lips curled into a smile. I didn't think you'd come. Emily sat across from him, arms crossed. I almost didn't. So why did you? She paused, then sighed. Because you provoked me, and I don't like being dared. Brian chuckled softly. He knew she'd say that. Emily scanned the menu and nearly choked. These prices, I can't afford this. Brian didn't even look up. I know. She narrowed her eyes. So what? You invited me here to flash your money? He met her gaze, calm and steady. No, I invited you here to talk. No games, no status, just you and me. Emily hesitated. This didn't make sense. Why her? You have thousands of people around you, she said slowly. Why me? Brian leaned forward. Because you're different. She blinked. He continued. The moment you hugged me at the airport, I saw it. You didn't care who I was. You treated me like a stranger, like a human. That doesn't happen to me anymore. Emily looked down, heart racing. There was something raw in his voice, something honest. So, you want to be friends? She asked, still guarded. Brian gave a small smile. Let's start with that. Dinner turned out different than she expected. There was no arrogance, no pressure. Brian talked about his childhood, his travels, even embarrassing stories. He asked about her life, listened, laughed. And for the first time, Emily found herself relaxing, laughing back. When dinner ended, he paid without fuss, and they stepped out into the cool night. Emily crossed her arms, shivering slightly. Without a word, Brian took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. She looked at him, suspicious. This isn't some way of buying me, is it? He smiled softly. If I were trying to buy you, trust me, you'd know. She rolled her eyes, but didn't take the jacket off. They stood in silence for a moment, the city glowing behind them. I enjoyed this, Brian said suddenly. Emily turned. This? Spending time with you? Her heart skipped, and she hated that it did, because as much as she wanted to ignore it, she had enjoyed it too. The next few days, Emily tried to go back to normal. She worked her shifts, smiled at customers, ignored the butterflies in her stomach every time she thought of Brian. But normal didn't last long, because Brian kept showing up. Same table, same order, same smirk. You really don't have anywhere else to get coffee? She asked one morning, placing his cup down. Oh, I do, he replied, but I like it here. And I suppose my company is part of that. A big part. Emily rolled her eyes, but she smiled, just a little. Then, after her shift, everything changed. Her little brother, Oliver, had been complaining about pain. She thought it was nothing, just fatigue. But that evening, at the hospital, the doctor's words shattered her world. He has a kidney condition, the doctor said. He'll need long-term treatment, possibly surgery. Emily felt like the floor disappeared beneath her. How much will it cost? The answer hit her like a punch to the chest. Way more than she had. Way more than she could ever make working at a cafe. That night, she sat in silence. Oliver was asleep, but she couldn't stop thinking. How was she supposed to save him? The next morning at work, Brian immediately noticed something was off. What happened? Nothing, she lied. But he wasn't buying it. She finally told him everything. About Oliver, the diagnosis, the cost. He listened without interrupting, then said 4 words that stunned her. "I'll pay for it." Emily stood up, alarmed. "Number? Absolutely not. No debt, no strings. I just want to help." "I don't want your help." He was silent for a moment, then leaned forward. "Okay, let's make a deal." She narrowed her eyes. "What kind of deal?" "Cook for me, 3 meals a day, 1 week, at my place. I'll pay you, enough to cover the treatment." Emily stared at him like he'd grown another head. "You want me to cook for you?" "Yes. This is the weirdest offer I've ever heard." "Think whatever you want," he said. "But that's my offer." Emily hesitated. She hated asking for help, but she loved her brother more, so she took a deep breath and whispered, "Deal." Emily thought it would be simple. 1 week, 3 meals a day. That's it. But the moment she stepped into Brian Carter's apartment, she realized she had no idea what she'd agreed to. The building was a modern skyscraper, glass doors, a uniformed doorman, private elevator. When the doors opened, her jaw dropped. His apartment looked like a luxury magazine had exploded. Marble floors, endless windows, a view of the entire city. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like another world. Brian greeted her casually from a leather couch, sipping coffee, like this was all totally normal. "Welcome." Emily crossed her arms. "This is ridiculous." "What is?" She gestured around wildly. "This palace, this view, this designer furniture. I mean, who lives like this?" He smirked. "Would you prefer we eat in the kitchen?" "Please tell me you have a kitchen." Brian pointed. Emily walked over and nearly had a meltdown. It looked like a cooking show set, state-of-the-art everything, stainless steel, sparkling countertops. Even the spoons looked expensive. "Have you ever even used this kitchen?" "Of course," Brian said. "I've walked through it." She rolled her eyes. "Great. I work in a shoebox cafe, and now I'm cooking in a 5-star culinary lab." "Can you handle it?" he teased. She grabbed a pan. "Try being difficult, Carter, and I'll launch this at your head." He laughed, and that's how the week began. Each day she cooked breakfast, then lunch, usually alone while he worked, then dinner. He never told her what he wanted. "Surprise me," he'd say, every single time. And somehow, she started to enjoy the challenge. But what surprised her more? Brian began spending more and more time in the kitchen. At first, it was just him passing through. Then he started sitting at the counter, watching, talking. One evening, as she chopped vegetables, he asked, "Why did you become a waitress?" She scoffed. "I didn't choose it. I needed a job, fast." "And what would you have chosen if you could?" She hesitated. "I don't know. Something I actually loved, but not everyone gets that luxury." He was quiet for a moment, then softly said, "What if you did?" Emily looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, she saw it. Brian Carter, billionaire, was just as trapped as she was. On the 5th day, something unexpected happened. While Emily was prepping dinner, Brian walked in, placed a garment bag on the counter and said, "Put this on tomorrow." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "It's a dress. We're going to an event." She opened the bag, her eyes widening at the elegant fabric. "I can't go to something like that. I don't belong in your world, Brian." He tilted his head. "Why not?" And the worst part? She didn't have an answer, because deep down, a small, dangerous part of her wanted to go. The next evening, she stepped out of her room in the dress. It fit like it was made for her. Brian turned and froze. "What?" she asked, suddenly nervous. "Nothing. You just look incredible." Emily's heart did a little backflip. At the charity gala, all eyes were on them, especially on her. Women in diamonds whispered, men glanced her way. But none of it compared to what happened next. A tall, icy blonde woman walked up, smiling like a snake. "Brian, what a surprise! And who is this?" Emily felt her spine stiffen. "Isabella," Brian said coolly. "This is Emily." Isabella's eyes narrowed. "How charming." But before she could say more, Brian reached for Emily's hand and laced his fingers through hers. "She's not my companion," he said evenly. "She's my guest, and if you have a problem with that, maybe choose a different table." Emily stared at him, stunned. He was defending her, in front of everyone, and suddenly something shifted inside her. She looked up at him and realized she liked him more than she ever meant to. Later, as the event went on, she could still feel Brian's hand brushing hers, his eyes checking on her, his presence always near. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't wanted this. But now, in this world of suits and secrets and social games, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. The next morning, everything changed. Emily's phone buzzed non-stop. Messages, headlines, notifications. Pictures from the gala had hit the internet. Her and Brian, hand in hand. Tabloids exploded. Billionaire's new mystery girl. Gold digger or true love? What does she want from Brian Carter? At the cafe, co-workers whispered. Customers stared. One voice cut through. "Did you see Isabella's post? She's calling you a charity case." Emily's stomach twisted. Her hands trembled. And then Brian walked in, calm, confident, like nothing had happened. She didn't even wait. "We need to talk," she whispered across the counter. 10 minutes later, they sat on a bench in a quiet park. Emily didn't hold back. "Do you know what you did? You threw me into your world, and I don't want to be in it." Brian was quiet. "Is that what's really bothering you, or is it what people are saying?" She looked away, frustrated. "I don't want to be a headline. I just wanted my life back." Brian's voice dropped low. "But you never wanted a normal life, Emily. You wanted more. Always have." His words hit harder than she expected. And then he reached out. Instinctively, she pulled back. For a second, his expression changed. He looked hurt. I have to go," she muttered, and turned away. She didn't look back, but something inside her cracked, and the worst was yet to come. The next day, while cleaning tables, she overheard a customer mention something that froze her blood. "You know Carter Corp bought that family restaurant a few years ago, the one that went bankrupt?" Emily turned slowly. "What restaurant?" "That little place downtown, the one her family owned, I think." Number it couldn't be. She rushed out of the cafe and went straight to Brian's apartment. When he opened the door and saw her face, he knew. "It was you," she said, voice shaking. "Your company destroyed my family's restaurant." Brian didn't deny it, and that was worse than anything he could have said. You knew all along." "No," he said, stepping closer. "Emily, I didn't know. Not until recently. I don't manage every acquisition. But when I found out—" "You said nothing." Her voice cracked. Her chest hurt. She looked at him one last time, eyes filled with betrayal. Then she turned and walked away. And this time, she did not look back. Emily tried to move on. She threw herself into work, focused on Oliver, ignored the empty chair in the cafe where Brian used to sit. But every day she felt that ache, the one you feel when someone mattered more than you ever expected. Then, a week later, just as she was closing up, the bell above the door rang. She didn't look up. "We're closed." "I know, but I had to see you." Her heart stopped. Brian. He looked different, tired. His usual confidence dimmed. There was something softer in his eyes. "Please," he said, "just let me explain." She crossed her arms. "You knew. You got close to me out of guilt." He shook his head. "I didn't know until after." And when I found out, I didn't know how to tell you, but I never lied about how I feel." Emily's breath caught. Then he placed a sealed envelope on the table and quietly walked out. She stared at it, opened it. Inside was a contract and the deed to her family's restaurant in her name. Brian had bought it back and gave it to her. No conditions, no tricks, just a silent attempt to fix what had been broken. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. The next morning, she went to his apartment, said nothing, just walked in and hugged him. A real hug, not awkward, not mistaken. A hug that said everything. "Thank you," she whispered. "I just wanted you to have what should have always been yours." She pulled back. "Does this change things?" Brian's eyes were steady. "Only if you want it to." And when he leaned in, she didn't pull away, because this time, she wanted him too. The restaurant reopened weeks later. Oliver was healthy. Emily finally had her dream and her freedom. Brian helped every step of the way, quietly, steadily, like a real partner. They didn't rush anything, but when he finally proposed, in the soft glow of a small, quiet restaurant, Emily said yes without hesitation, because after everything, she knew she had found her place, not in his world, not in hers, but in something new, built together, hand in hand, forever.